Good morning, one and all. Today, we will be talking about DC-DC converters for renewable energy storage integration. I'll myself, Dr. Srinivas from IIT Bhubaneswar. At the outset, let me thank National Institute of Technology, Andhra Pradesh, for inviting me for this talk. I am basically from the same town where this NIT has been situated. Okay, it is happy to have an NIT in my hometown, and I've been participating in such workshops, which will help to disseminate the research what we are doing at IITs. Okay, and yeah, I have very little experience in DC-DC converters. I've been working in this area for last 10 years. I'll try to share what knowledge I have acquired during these 10 years. And definitely it is not only my work, it is the work of my PhD scholars whom I am presenting it today on behalf of them, and try to add some more details. The talk is basically divided into two parts. First one, I'll just give a brief introduction of the existing, how the journey of these DC-DC converters have come from the fundamentals to the advanced levels. Then we will go and see what exactly we are trying to do. Okay, and I'm always happy if you can stop me in the middle and clarify your doubts, whatever the organizers do. Sir, shall we stop in the middle at the same time, or at the end only the question and answers?
Sir, actually in the chat box we are taking questions, sir. At the end, all the questions will be discussed, sir.
Okay, I will take the lecture for 1.5 hours to 1 hour 40 minutes. Then we'll have enough time for discussion. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, this is already Dr. Ramesh has given my bio. Thanks for him. I'm happy to see that I have graduated from my BTech from Bapatla Engineering College in 2007. Then I joined as a Master of Science student in IIT Madras. Later, I have converted to my PhD. I do not have a master's degree. I have a direct PhD degree. Then I did my postdoctoral fellowship from Toronto Ryerson University. And after that, I've been working in IIT Bhubaneswar. Between, I was an academic visitor in University of Warwick, Coventry, United Kingdom. There, basically, I shifted my research to DC-DC converters as a part of my postdoctoral work. Before that, I used to work on custom power devices, especially the inverters. Yeah. So coming to the outline of the topic, what we will do is we will first, as I said, we'll talk about the linear converters, then the basic switching converters, resonant converters, and transformized switching converters. This is the stages how the DC-DC converters have evolved. Then, as a second part of my lecture, we will be talking about the research what we have done in our IIT Bhubaneswar, that is on switched capacitor based high gain DC-DC converter, and also the ZVS high gain DC-DC converter. Then how this DC-DC converter can be connected to the normal utility grid using a single source multi-level inverter we will be discussing. Then the grid integration control. Okay. So to come up with the definition, as you all know, converting the unregulated DC input to a controlled DC output with desired voltage level. What basically happens is, in most of the cases, even if you look at a PV panel, the output of a PV panel, the voltage is not a fixed one. It varies. Normally, the open circuit voltage will be around 45 volts for a 325 watt panel. And when it is connected to the load, the voltage will be anywhere between 36, near to 36, but it is not a fixed one. Then people will try to do MPPT algorithm to get the maximum power output from the PV panel. But these output voltages are not a constant one. But when you want to connect it to, just a second, हम क्लास में हैं, ऑफिस में ठीक है भरतराम सर को दे दीजिए, भरतराम सर को दे दीजिए. Yeah. When the PV panel output is not a constant one, but the loads require a constant voltage, or constant voltage means you need to have a fixed voltage. Then how do you get it? You need to use a DC-DC converter, and basically that conversion of unregulated DC input to the controlled DC output is what DC-DC converter is doing. And the applications are many. I have mentioned only few, like switched mode power supplies, DC motor control, battery chargers, PV integration or renewable energy integration, all these things, even fuel cells, everything comes under. Without this power electronic interface, it is very difficult to integrate it to the grid. Now, the very starting, when they talked about getting a constant DC output from a variable DC input, the first thing comes to mind is use of linear converters. Why do we say these are linear converters? If you see, there are two converters here. One is a series converter, another is a shunt voltage regulator. Why do you think these are called as a linear converters? The primary reason is all the elements which are there here are linear. By saying that one, you can immediately see there is a transistor. Sir, how can you say a transistor is linear? But the transistor will be having three operating regions. One is cutoff region, another is cut-in region. You have active region, saturation, and cutoff region. In the active region, the transistor will be a linear element. That means it behaves simply like a resistor. And if you look at other elements are also, there are resistance. It is basically a potential divider. What basically happens is, when you give 10 volts input, let us assume that I am giving a 10 volts input, I want some 5 volts. What you need to do? Basically, you ensure that inside the base current is injected in such a way that this particular this particular transistor offers a resistance which will ensure the drop in this resistor is 5 volts. Out of 10 volts, if the drop in the transistor is 5 volts, then the output will be another 5 volts. And in order to give the feedback, we are using a potential divider circuit. Now, similarly, if the voltage changes here, let us take if the voltage has come to 9 volts, then the voltage drop across this one will be maintained to 4 volts, such that the output will be 5 volts. This is a very basic linear converter. But what is the difficulty with this one? The difficulty is you are actually losing a lot of energy in this transistor. Okay, there is a voltage drop, that means power loss is there. If the current rating is increasing, these converters may not be suitable application. Whereas the same analysis can be done for the shunt converter or voltage regulator also. In case of shunt voltage regulator, what will happen is the transistor is placed in shunt mode. Here, the current is being controlled. For example, you have a power rating of load of 10 watts. Then the voltage is fixed to 5 volts and you want only 0.2 amperes current to be flowing. Then you will be basically controlling the power using the base driver. So these are called linear, but generally what happens is the power dissipation becomes a major problem above 5 amperes. Once the current rating increases, there will be a lot of loss and the efficiency of these conversions are very less. And inherently, the shunt is short circuit proof. That what I mean is, for example, let us take in case of a series, if the output is short circuited, then there will be a huge amount of current flowing in the transistor, which will burn the transistor. Whereas that problem is not there. Even if it is short circuited at the output terminals, this is in the shunt portion. So the current will not flow and spoil the transistor. So generally the shunt is inherently short circuit proof. So you understand the difficulty. One is the power loss is a difficulty. So then we have moved to switched converters. Once I talk about switched converters, what will happen is the same transistor which we are using in the linear region in linear converters, now it will be used in saturation region and cutoff region. What I mean by saturation region is, when the switch is closed, it goes into the saturation region. When the switch is open, it will become a cut off or fully off. So when the switch is on, there will be no current will be flowing, no voltage drop will be there. When the switch is open, no current will be flowing. It will be the voltage across the switch will be supply voltage in this particular diagram. Now you look at here, it acts as the output voltage will be a pulsating DC. Whenever the switch is on, your input voltage is equivalent to output voltage. Whenever the switch is off, your output voltage is 0. If you give such type of voltage to the load, will it be good? It is a pulsating DC. Of course, the average will be, if you calculate the average, it will be, let us take the input is 10 volts, and I am oning the switch for 50% duty cycle. Then the average output voltage is 5 volts. I agree. But still, the wave shape is a pulsating DC. if you give such a voltage to a motor for the speed control, then the motor will have jerks, or any other equipment there will be lot of EMI issues and all. It is not good scenario. Now switched converters, the basic fundamental is good, but the first problem is it is a pulsating DC output. The second problem is, instead of resistive load, if I have an RL load, what will happen if I have an RL load? When the switch is on, the inductor resistor will dissipate energy, whereas the inductor will store the energy. When the switch is off, there is no issue. The inductor, the resistor current can immediately become zero, because it is not a storage element. Whereas the inductor, there is an energy stored, and that energy has to be dissipated. That energy will be dissipated across the switch. And now what will happen to the switch? The switch will experience a very high dI by dt rating. Then the switch may spoil. So even this converter has some problems. The first problem is the output is pulsating DC. The second problem is when the switch is open, during RL load, when you are trying to turn off the switch, there will be a high amount of energy that will be dissipated across the switch. The high dI by dt rating will be there, which will damage the switch. In order to counter this one, the basic switching converters have been designed in this fashion. Here you can see, along with the regular switch, we are putting one more switch parallel to the load, RL load or RLE load. This is basically a representation of a DC motor. Okay. Now look at here. When the switch S1 is closed, the output voltage will be equivalent to input voltage. Or the output voltage is equivalent to input voltage. When the switch S1 is off and S1 is off, immediately S2 is closed, such that there will be a freewheeling action, and the energy that is stored in the inductor will be dissipated across the resistor, which will increase the efficiency. Also, it will not damage the switch S1, but the output voltage will be zero. Still, the problem of pulsating DC still exists. Whereas the problem of protecting the switch S1 has been taken care by this particular topology. Now, what will be the input current? I of t. The input current, when the switch S1 is on, the inductor is getting charged, or the current that is flowing in the load, it will be getting charged. That's why it is going from I1 to I2. And the switch S1 is open and S2 is on. The current that is flowing in the inductor will now discharge in the resistor. So it will start discharging. This is continuous conduction mode of operation. Now, how do you achieve this pulsating DC into a normal DC? That is the next level. Before going to the those things, we need to understand two important principles based on which the DC-DC converters works. One is called volt second balance on inductor. Another is called charge second balance on capacitor. Let us look at these things. What will happen is, if I'm not talking about the inductor that is present in the load, we are going to put an LC circuit filter such that this particular pulsating DC will become a constant DC. So those inductor, whatever is there, in a steady state, when the DC-DC converter is operating, the integral of the voltage across the inductor over a one time period is zero. It should follow this particular principle. Similarly, the current that is flowing in the capacitor, which is placed across the load to remove the ripples in the voltage, this particular capacitor, the current that is flowing through the capacitor along a switch period must be zero for a steady state. These two principles are very important. We have to follow these two in throughout, okay, DC-DC converter analysis. Now look at here. Look at the very basic buck converter. Let me explain you. In order to eliminate the pulsating DC, this particular inductor capacitor LC filter has been placed. And one switch is used, another, instead of using a switch, even if a diode is used, it is good enough. Now, I am showing with a resistive load, but this also works for RL load or RLE load also. There is no worry. Now, when the switch S1 is on, diode D will be reverse biased, because voltage is coming across it, which is reverse biased. Now the inductor will start charging. This L inductor will be start charging. Also the voltage across the output will be V in across the output will be, sorry, the voltage across the inductor will be V in minus V out. Whereas when the switch S is open, the diode will become reverse biased. Why is the diode is becoming reverse biased? Because the energy that is stored in the inductor should have a path to dissipate. And this path is created by closing the diode. And now in the first mode, when the inductor is charging, and in the second mode, the inductor is discharging whatever energy is stored. Here, if you closely observe, in the mode 1, the direction of positive and negative, the voltage across the inductor has been represented positive and negative, whereas in mode 2, it has represented as minus and plus. This process is called inductive kick. So when the switch has been turned off, immediately the inductor, which is earlier acting as a sink, will act as a source. Once it is this particular transaction is called inductive kick. And now you need to understand this particular switch is now protected. Also, there is a path created for this inductor energy to dissipate in the load, through the load. And this capacitor C is used to reduce the ripple in the output voltage. That means your output voltage will be more DC. Another important thing is, in case of DC-DC converters, it can operate in continuous conduction mode as well as discontinuous conduction mode. What I mean by continuous conduction mode and discontinuous conduction mode is, the current that is flowing in the inductor will decide whether it is in continuous conduction mode or in discontinuous conduction mode. Please refer to the current in the inductor, that is IL. If the IL is continuous, if it is not reaching to 0, then it is called continuous conduction. If the IL is coming to 0 during the operation, then it is called discontinuous. Let us show the wave, see the waveforms. And there is another thing called synchronous rectifier. What is meant by synchronous rectifier is, instead of using a diode, if I use one more switch here, then we call it as a synchronous rectifier. And the advantage of the synchronous rectifier is, normally the diode will have a higher on-state resistance. Also, the on-state voltage drop is around 0.7 volts. Because of this, the diode will have a lot of losses and the efficiency will come down. Whereas if you, instead of using a diode, if I use another switch, then we can actually increase the efficiency. Okay. Now look at the waveforms. As you all know, V0 by Vin is equivalent to D for a normal buck converter if it is operating in continuous conduction mode. And how did I achieve this one? How to calculate this one? How did you achieve to this one? This is basically by applying the principle of volt second balance. You just find what is the voltage across the inductor. In the mode 1, it is V in minus V out. In the mode 2, it is minus V out. This is for one cycle. Take the average of it. Automatically, you will get V0 by Vin is equivalent to duty cycle. Now look at here. This particular current, whatever is shown in the figure 1 or figure A, this current is continuous. Can you see? Then it is in, whereas this current in the figure B, the current is discontinuous. That means before the next cycle starts, the current has become 0. The inductor value is so less, the energy stored in the inductor is very less. Are you getting my point? The energy that is stored in the inductor is very less. Because of this, okay, the energy that is stored in this particular inductor is little less. Is it in the full screen mode?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, people may ask, sir, is it good to operate in DCM mode or in CCM mode? It depends upon the application. For example, in DCM mode, what will happen is, if the inductor value is less, means the size of the inductor will be less. And also, for the same amount of duty cycle, in DCM mode, you will get a higher output. I'll explain you. Let me show you one thing. Yeah, this is the DCM mode for a buck converter. this is a DCM mode. The inductor current has become 0 even before the next cycle starts. Normally the next cycle starts at this point, okay, but it is becoming 0. And if I calculate the V out by V in for a buck converter, it is coming out to be D by D plus delta 1, where delta 1 is the time taken for the inductor current from the peak value to 0. That is delta 1. Now, delta 1 TS. What will happen is, originally V0 by V in is duty cycle D. Whereas here, for example, I have given an input of 10 volts and I want an output of 5 volts. In continuous conduction mode, how much duty cycle we will keep it? V0, if your input voltage is 10 and output voltage is 5, you will put the duty cycle to be D is equivalent to 0.5. Am I right? But in discontinuous conduction mode, this is a relationship. V0 by V in is equivalent to D by D plus delta 1. You look at here, if I put D is equivalent to 0.5 now here, this is also 0.5. Delta 1, will it be less than 0.5 or not? Delta 1, will it be less than 0.5 or not? See, if this is 0.5, delta 1 plus delta 2 should be 0.5. That means delta 1 will be less than 0.5. That means the denominator will be less than 1. If the denominator is less than 1, 0.5 divided by less than 1 means it will definitely increase above 0.5. That means the output voltage will be greater than 5 volts. That means with the same duty cycle, if you run in continuous conduction mode and in discontinuous conduction mode, your discontinuous conduction mode will give an higher output. For example, if you want to maintain 5 as your output voltage in both the conditions, then you can reduce the duty cycle. So what is the advantage of reducing the duty cycle? The amount of time your switch is on has been reduced, which will certainly reduce the conduction losses in the switch. So sometimes it is always good to operate in DCM mode. The first advantage is the converters will have a inductor which is of less weight because the value is less. Similarly, for the same amount of duty cycle, you are getting an higher output, so the conduction losses will also reduce. These are the two advantages you are going to get it. And another thing we need to look at in case of buck converters is the output ripple. The output ripple, you are expecting a constant DC, but still in that constant DC, there will be some amount of ripple. The ripple will be inversely proportional to your frequency square. That means if you are keeping a higher switching frequency, then automatically you will have a better output voltage. And also it depends upon the inductor value and capacitor value. Now, if you talk about the design specs, what they will do is they will say, I want an output for an input voltage which is varying between 10 to 15. I need an output of 5 volts with a ripple of 1%. Then your delta V0 will be 1%, your output will be 5. You can choose your duty cycle and measure. You can take the values of inductor, either inductor or capacitor fixed. We will choose the inductor, whether you want to operate in continuous conduction mode or in discontinuous conduction mode. Based on that, you will design what is your L value. Then based on the switch what you are using, you will decide what is the switching frequency you can go. For example, if you are using a MOSFET and the data sheet says it can operate up to 20 kilohertz, you will put frequency as 20 kilohertz. Then you will choose the capacitor value accordingly to meet your design specifications. So when the consumer will ask, see, you can go up to 50 kilohertz. This is my cost, and this is the inductor you can use, or this is the weight it should come. This is the efficiency. Based on this, we can use these formulas and design a buck converter. And a similar explanation can go with boost converter. And as you all know, in case of a boost converter, the important thing is this is a structure, and when the switch SC is closed, then simply the input voltage is allowing the inductor to charge. And when the switch SC is open, now the input voltage as well as the voltage across the inductor, which will now change its polarity. Of course, I am not showing it here changed, but in figure mode 2, this particular voltage will change minus to plus, and it will also act as a source. Now, when two things are acting as a source, basically you are boosting the voltage. That is why the boosting action is coming. Earlier, input voltage is charging the inductor in the mode 1, and when the switch is S is closed, both V in and the voltage across the inductor both will act as two sources, which will give as an output voltage. Hope you understood. Yeah. Now here also you have the V0 by V in is equivalent to 1 by 1 minus D. But please remember, the output ripple in case of a boost converter depends upon, it doesn't depend upon the inductor value. It depends upon the frequency and capacitor. And this R is the load resistor. Of course, you do not have a control over the load resistance or the maximum load what you can put. You have that control. Frequency again from the data sheet, and then we can find the what is the capacitance value. Okay, you can see the waveforms when the switch across the inductor. When the switch S is closed, your voltage across the inductor is V in. When the switch S is opened, the voltage across the inductor is V in minus V0. And on this particular waveform, if you conduct the volt second balance, what I mean by volt second balance is you need to find the average voltage of this particular thing, and if you equate it to 0, then you will get V0 by V in is equal to 1 by 1 minus D. Okay.
Monday या Tuesday हमारा नया फिटिंग आने वाला है, ये रिप्लेस होगा क्योंकि वारंटी में ये जाके आने से 15 दिन लगेगा, तो ब्लॉक का बोलना इसलिए मंडे
Just 1 minute.
Okay, sir.
बोले कि हाँ नहीं तो मंडे में अभी पार्टी को फोन किया था, बोले मंडे आएंगे, मुझे आप ट्यूसडे में रिप्लेस करने से
ठीक. Yeah. So, sorry for the interruption. Yeah.
It's okay, sir.
Yeah. You can see the inductor current is continuous over here. These are all continuous conduction mode only. I have drawn the voltage current through the inductor. When the inductor is charging, it is the slope is positive slope. When the inductor is discharging, when it is acting as a source, it will discharge. It is the current is discharging. Similarly, you can see the voltage across the diode. Sorry, the current through the diode. The current through the diode, this particular diode, it will be there only when the switch is open. So only when the switch is open, it is discharging. And the current through the capacitor is this one. It will have some ripple, and you can find, if you want to how much is getting charged, you can find the area under this particular curve. It is in CCM mode. Whatever I have shown, these waveforms are in CCM mode. I will show the DCM mode also. Then you come to the buck boost converter. It is again, I want to mention one more point here. Out of all the DC-DC converters, if you can understand the boost converter and buck converter, these are the building blocks. Remaining all converters are the advanced versions of these basic converters. Even if you look at buck boost converter, it is basically depending upon the duty cycle. If duty cycle is less than 0.5, it will act as a buck converter. Otherwise, if duty cycle is greater than 0.5, it will act as a boost converter. Look at here. When the switch S is closed, the inductor will be charging. When the switch S is opened, the inductor alone will act as a source. Earlier in boost converter, along with the switch, along with the source, the inductor is also acting to boost. But in case of buck boost converter, if the switch is open, only the inductor will be acting as a source, and the polarities on this inductor will be changing. Now, why it is giving both actions? Remember, if you on for less than 50%, the energy stored in this inductor will be less. If you on for more than D, more than 50%, the energy stored in this inductor will be good enough to boost the voltage. And the relationship is D by 1 minus D. And you can see here, when the switch is closed, the output voltage, the voltage across the inductor is V in. When the switch is open, the output voltage is minus V0. From this one, we can find V0 by V in is equal to D by 1 minus D. And the ripple and the critical inductance values are similar to your boost converter. It is inverse. The ripple is inversely proportional to the frequency and capacitance. Yeah. Look at here. I have drawn for all the three converters. Buck converter I have already explained. In case of boost converter, if you see the inductor current, if is discontinuous, the reason is, let me go to once boost converter. In case of boost converter, the current through the inductor, here it will be charging, and here in the second case it will discharge. This will be the current. Now here whatever I have drawn, if it is discharging well before the time, then that means actually it should discharge at this point, at this end, but it is discharging ahead. Then you can find V0 by Vin is equivalent to delta 1 plus D by delta 1. Using the same analysis, you can see in boost converter also, for a less amount of duty cycle, you can get an higher output voltage. Buck boost and boost converter have a very similar waveforms. Both of them have a very similar waveforms. Now, let us look at till now whatever we have looked, we have not considered any parasitic elements. Let us look at the parasitic elements and how it's going to change. This is a simple buck converter, and any switch will have an on-state resistance that has been added. Similarly, when you have an inductor, definitely there will be an resistance offered by this inductor, and also the diode will come an on-state resistance drop as well as an knee voltage or breakout voltage, that is VD, that has been connected in series. And I have forgot to show in this capacitor, along with this there will be a resistor also. Along with this there will be a resistance also. And this is the second figure. The B figure is the converter including all the losses. Now if you talk about the resonant converter, what I mean by resonance, why should we go to resonant converters is, for example, you are operating at a higher switching frequency, then the switch should operate in either in zero voltage switching or zero current switching. This will help us to improve the efficiency by reducing the switching losses. In order to achieve that one, apart from your filter inductors, that is L0 and C0, there will be a resonant capacitor and resonant inductance. The value of this resonant capacitor and resonant inductor will be very less when compared to L0 and C0. Sometimes whatever parasitic capacitance that is present across the switch will be used to achieve the resonant circuit. And what is the purpose of the resonant circuit? To achieve soft switching. Okay, here I have shown two types. One is half wave L type, another is full wave L type. L type means the inductor and capacitor are put in L shape, and half wave is because the diode is kept in this direction.
Srinivas sir.
Hello? Yeah.
What is the meaning of this soft switching and hard switching, sir?
Yeah, hard switching means, for example, okay, is there any? Yeah, let me show it. I have another presentation. There it will be there.
I request the participants, please post your question in the chat box, because flow may be.
Yeah, it's okay, Ramesh. It's okay. It is good that they're okay. Look at here, sir. I hope you can see the screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Which one you are seeing?
ZCS.
So screen gone, sir.
Okay. No, I am sharing my entire screen. Okay. Yeah. Can you see this hard
Yes,
switching? Yeah. Now, what I am trying to say is, for example,
Sir, make it full, sir.
I want to explain it from here. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah. So what will happen is, during turn off, if you are trying to turn off a switch, what will happen when you are trying to before that instant, the switch will be carrying the full current. That means current will be I0, full current. When the switch is being asked to stop by giving a switching pulse, then the current will slowly reduce. It won't instantaneously decrease. Whereas the voltage across the switch will slowly build up. During this switching transient, there will be some amount of power loss. Similarly, on turn-on case also, when the switch during turn-on, before the turn-on, the current will be 0. But once the switch, there is a switching pulse goes to the switch, the turn-on process starts, and the current will slowly build up, and the voltage will slowly fall down. During this transient period, When the current is increasing and the voltage is decreasing, there will be some amount of power loss. This is called hard switching. If the frequency of switching increases, that means if the frequency of turn on and turn off increases, there will be so much of energy loss. In order to avoid that one, what we will do is, if you can ensure,
Sir, how the switching frequencies depends upon this turn on period and turn off period. So if
no,
the
I am not
switching frequency
saying
increases.
switching frequency is not doesn't depend upon the turn on time and turn off time, but the number of times the switch is turning on and turning off will increase if the switching increases.
Right. That means the power loss during this on time period and off time period will increase.
No. That's not correct. This is fixed. If let us assume that during turn on process 1 millijoule is lost, and during turn on process another 1 millijoule is lost. That means if you turn on and turn off one time, 2 millijoules is lost. That is a fixed amount of energy loss. If you increase the switching frequency, that means the number of times you are turning on and turning off has increased.
Yeah.
So that means more amount of energy is lost. Now what is our aim is, either ensure that during turn off process, that is called zero current switching, ensure that the current has become zero, then only you give the switching pulse to turn off. Sorry. Okay, then what will happen? The power will be zero, the power loss will be zero, because the current has become zero, then the voltage is increasing. This is called zero current switching. Similarly, during turn on process, if you ensure the voltage across the switch becomes zero, then you allow the current to flow. And during turn on process also, you will achieve zero voltage switching. So in this way, the energy loss can be reduced. If the energy loss during switching is reduced, then you can actually increase the switching frequency. And what is the advantage of increasing the switching frequency? That has been explained already. If I increase the switching frequency, the output ripple will be reduced. You will get a more constant DC output voltage. Hope I have answered.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. I request other members to please mute yourself so that there won't be any crosstalk. You can definitely ask me the questions in the middle, but I request other members to please mute. Okay. Now, let us go back and see. Now here, till now, whatever we have seen, we have focused on converters which do not have an isolation. They are non-isolated converters, because the input and output have a common port. Okay, but some requirements we may have a isolation. So most of the drawbacks of the basic and resonance switching converters is that their input and outputs are not isolated. So isolation is required in some applications. Then we can have a transformized switching converters. What basically we do is, we'll use a transformer. There are fundamentally, these are the 5 prominent topologies. That is forward converter, which is nothing but a buck converter with a transformer. The power range is around 100 to 500 watt. Then we have flyback converter, which is a buck boost converter, 5 watt to 200 watt, push pull converter. Let us look at these things. Just look, imagine this is a
Bhaskar sir.
Yeah.
Please try to give some glance on soft switching, sir. Just now we have explained about hard switching.
Yeah.
What is this soft switching?
Okay. Yeah, let me, of course, this is not prepared for this one. Okay. Look at here. If you talk about soft switching, there are 2 types of soft switching. One is zero voltage switching, another is zero current switching. I will show you the waveforms. Then you can understand how this is occurring. For example, you look at here. This is the gating pulse. The first waveform is the gating pulse. When the gate pulse is given to turn on, this is basically called zero current switching. Zero current switching occurs during turn off period. Turn off means, look at here, when you are trying to give a turn off the switching pulse to zero, at that point, look at the current in inductor, the current in the inductor, has it become 0? ILR, I am talking about ILR. Has it become 0? Okay. So at this time, if you give turn off process, then the energy loss will be 0. What I am trying to say is, when the switch QS is on, there will QS and it is a buck converter. The inductor current is the same current that is flowing in the switch. That is been shown here. It will linearly increase. And in the second mode, what will happen is, because there is an inductor and capacitor thing has come into picture, there will be a resonance occurring between this inductor and capacitor. In the first mode, what will happen is diode will be turned on. So the inductor will be simply charging. It will linearly go. Please look at ILR figure. It is linearly going. When the switch is on, the inductor is charging linearly. And once it reaches a certain voltage, then the diode will be reverse biased, and the capacitor, what is this capacitor? It is not the output capacitor. It is a resonance capacitor. Now the resonance inductor and resonance capacitor will come as an LC filter, LC, and the resonance will occur. Once the resonance occurs, you all know it will evolve as a sinusoidal. Okay, because it is going in a sinusoidal fashion, at some point of time, the current will become 0. And this current, when it is becoming 0, it will, after that instance, I will ensure the signal to switch off is given. To achieve this one, there are a lot of criteria. We should ensure that this resonance is occurring well within the time. By the time the next switching comes, the resonance should complete. Okay. Now, what will happen? The current has become 0. Then the voltage is applied. The reverse biased voltage is applied across the switch. Then will there be any loss? No. The 0 current switching is occurring. Hope you have understood.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah. There are several methods here. That is a little different away from this one. Okay. Now, if you look at here, in this particular thing, you forget about the transformer for a minute. And instead of transformer, just put a source here. It will just simply like a buck converter. Instead of diode D1, if the switch is there, it is a buck converter only. Now, what is this transformer is simply doing? On the primary side of the transformer, the switch is placed. The transformer is introducing the turns ratio, NS by NP. If the secondary have more number of turns, it will give some isolation between the input voltage and the output voltage. Apart from that, it is also increasing the voltage to certain level. And what is the disadvantage of this one is, it has a poor utilization of the transformer. The reason is, when the switch S is closed, then only this transformer will be used. When the switch S is open, simply diode D2 will be closed and D1 will be opened, and this transformer is not, we are not utilizing the transformer. And it is also having a pure transient response. Okay. This is forward converter. Then you have flyback converter. Flyback converter is nothing but your buck boost converter. And you accept that the transformer is there and the transformer is been placed with a polarities in reverse direction. The reason for putting the polarity in reverse direction is, for example, when the switch S is on, and if you are getting a positive voltage here, positive V, here you will get a negative V, and the diode D will be, what will happen? The diode D will be reverse biased. Okay. The diode D will be reverse biased and the load will be catered from the capacitor. Now, when the switch is off, whatever energy that is stored in this inductance, that will act as an inductive kick and the diode D will be turned on. Okay. This is something similar to your buck boost action. In the buck boost action, when the switch is on, the inductor will be charging. When the switch is off, the inductor will be discharging. The same thing has been achieved here. If I would have put the polarities, the dots in the same thing, what will happen? When the switch S is on, the diode will also be on. In order to avoid that one, the polarities have been in reverse way. And this is the most famous one, the full bridge converter. It has the highest utilization of the transformer. The reason is, Of course, the difficulty is you should have a midpoint tapped transformer, which is hard to achieve, but also it requires 4 number of switches, but the output voltage is 2 times the input voltage. Even if the transformer trans ratio is 1:1, directly you will get 2 times the output voltage. Like this we can, and once there are 4 number of switches, automatically the number of drivers required will be more. Okay. It is also a one type of buck converter only. Only thing is you are getting this 2 times extra because of the transformer midpoint type connection and 4 number of switches. And this is another type of converter that is called dual active bridge converter. Nowadays this is famous. These are very famously they are using it. The idea here is, in the primary side there is a H bridge, in the secondary side there is another H bridge. Generally S1 and S2 are on and S3 and S4 are on. Then you will get a pulsating DC like this on the primary side voltage. Similarly, in the secondary side, with some phase shift, S5 and S6 will be on and S7 and S8 will be on. And this phase angle difference will be coming. That means the voltage applied across this inductor from the primary side, if it is having this particular waveform, and on the secondary side with some phase angle difference, then there will be a current flowing in the inductor. It will be charging when there is a phase angle difference, when the secondary side is leading, and then it will slowly discharge. That means the power is going from the VA side to VB. If you reverse the phase angles, or if you lead the secondary side voltage phasor, secondary side voltage by some angle, then the power from the battery from VB to VA will go. That is why it is called dual active bridge. It can allow the current flow, power flow from the input to output or from the output to input. Whereas these features are not there in your previous things. All are unidirectional power flow. Either you take a buck converter or a boost converter or any other converter, those are unidirectional power flow. Okay. This is the end of the introduction. If anyone has a specific doubt, they can ask me.
Sir, in the last topology, how the phase delay is happened, sir?
It depends. The phase delay is introduced. What I'll do is, let us assume that S1 and S2, I am giving a switching pulses at t is equal to 0. And S3 and S4, I am giving after 50% duty cycle. Then you will get a square waveform. Okay. Where you will get a square waveform? Across these 2 points.
Before the inductor.
At these points, you will, what voltage you will be getting? You will be getting an
Square
voltage
wave.
like this. Okay, here S1 and S2 is on, here S3 and S4 are on. Now what I will do is, this S5 and S6, I will not immediately, I'll on little late. Here I will on. I'll on at this position. After, let us take, this is t is equivalent to some 1 microsecond. And I will off little late. Okay, I hope you understood.
Yes, sir. Then what is the need of the transformer, sir?
No, the transformer is basically increasing the, see, on the secondary side, you want a higher output voltage.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Let us assume that the basic application of these things is, let us take, you want to connect a battery to the grid, battery energy storage to the grid. Normally, the battery voltage will be around 30-40 volts. But if you want to connect it to a single phase grid, at least the DC link should be 325 volts. Then how do you boost it? You can use 1:10 transformer here, or there are other techniques. Okay, this transformer trans ratio will ensure that a higher DC voltage is coming at the secondary side. Similarly, when you want to charge the battery from the grid voltage, DC voltage after the AC, if you use a rectifier and make it a DC, let us take 320 volts is coming. Then you will be, this transformer will act as a step down transformer and the battery will be charging. You may think that you want to avoid this transformer and just put an inductor. Yes, it will occur, but the voltage levels will be same. The power will be flowing from one end to another end, but the voltage levels will be almost the same. Did you understand?
Master,
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
I
Yeah.
have one more query here in this
Yeah.
slide. Dual active bridge converter.
Yeah.
Sir, across S1, across any switch, you have connected the diode and capacitor.
Very good question. It is not actually an extra capacitor we have connected. This one actually is the parasitic capacitor that is coming along with the switch. And this capacitance, I'm going to use it along with this LR inductance to achieve zero voltage switching. This
Acha,
capacitance
ZVS and ZCS.
to achieve ZVH and ZGS, if a switch is given, if you look at the data sheet of any switch, they will mention what is the parasitic capacitance. I will take that one and I will design the inductor in such a way that these two are under resonance and achieve the zero voltage switching.
Right. So you missed that point, so that's why.
Yeah.
Sir, can we connect the transformer with the DC voltage, sir?
Very good question. Normal transformers, if you connect it, it will go into saturation. But these are the high frequency transformers. You are giving a pulsating DC. Okay. By the time actually the core is getting charged, going into saturation, you are removing the DC voltage. The frequency is very high. And the core is also a different.
Okay, this transformer is different from the ordinary transformer.
This transformer is very small transformer. See, once the frequency of operation increases, the transformer size will decrease.
Okay.
If you are going to a 50, 100 kilohertz or 200 kilohertz, the transformers will be very small. The cores are used are also not the regular core we are using in the power transformer. Please think, if you want more details on this one, there is a handbook by Williams, I think. Yeah. How to design these transformers for for DC-DC converters. Military handbook is there.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other?
One more question.
Yeah.
So which converter will be best suitable for battery charging applications, sir? For example, if you are generating power from solar wind hybrid system, so that we want to store it with some battery. So which kind of converter is giving more efficiency?
See, right now batteries are not connected into the grid extensively across the world. Okay, there are some pilot projects. Still, a lot of research is going on. Actually, this particular point, let me show you. I have worked in Canada. Then instead of using primary side, I have used a H-bridge. Secondary side, I have used a NPC structure, and then I have used an 3-level grid connector and connected to the grid. Basically, this is the battery storage energy connected to the grid. We have done an extensive research on that, and this has been practically implemented in Toronto, Canada. Okay, I cannot say this is the best, but it has given an increased efficiency. There are definitely, when you talk about batteries, you should have a bidirectional features. Okay, and it should also have an isolation. The reason is any problem in the battery side should not be reflected to the grid side, or any problem in the grid side should not be reflected onto the battery side. Okay, we have done some research on this, but if you ask pinpointly which is the best, that depends. What is your requirement? If you are trying to inject a very high power, I think dual active grids are better.
Okay, so not to the grid connection. I'm talking about the microgrid level. So suppose if you're generating power from the solar panel, I just wanted to
called grid connection only. That is called grid connection. When you talk about there are difference. For example, electrical vehicles charging, then you have a different thing, different scenario.
Okay.
Either it is a microgrid or a grid. What I am talking is isolation is required. And to the people who wants to see the ZVS, you look at here, this particular dotted line, whatever is there, is the voltage. The voltage has become 0, then I have given the switching pulse. Once the voltage has become 0, then only I have given the switching pulse. The thick line is the switch, the dotted line is the voltage. Here this one has been expanded like this, and the current through this is both battery charging and discharging, both ways, even at very light load condition. And please remember, I forgot to mention this point, when you are applying the 0 voltage switching or any soft switching, it depends upon the load. If the load is very less, if the load current is very less, automatically the time taken for the resonance to complete will be more. then you will certainly lose the soft switching. Sometimes we try to achieve soft switching, but when the load at light loading conditions, most of the converters will fail to achieve zero voltage switching or zero current switching. Okay. Whereas the converter which we propose, even at a very light loading condition, that means the load has almost be 1/3 of the rated load, we were able to achieve the ZVS. But if you further go, we will lose. Look at here, you have more amount of time. Here we have more amount of time after the voltage has become zero. After some nanoseconds, the current the switch is turned on. But when the load has reduced, the time has been reduced. The reason is, if the current is less, let us assume if the current is less, the time taken for the energy that is stored in the inductor to transfer to the capacitor. Resonance means what? One cycle, the energy that is stored in the inductor will be transferred to capacitor. In another cycle, the energy that is stored in the capacitor will transfer to inductor. This fraction, it will take more time. If it is taking more time, that means the current to come to zero will take more time. If it is not coming to zero, or the current or the voltage, whichever factor, then you will not achieve the zero voltage switching. Okay.
Nice explanation, sir. I have one more doubt here.
Yeah.
Sir, you said that C1, C2, C3, they are due to parasitic capacitances. Sir.
Yeah.
Now, even if you go for hot switching,
Yeah.
there also we may see this C1 and D1, sir.
Definitely they will be there, but the inductor will not be there to achieve the zero voltage switching or zero current switching.
Right. Generally, if you see the what is converter for hot switching, we don't represent C1 and C2 there. Just we will represent that switch parallel with the diodes only.
Correct,
Why
sir.
this, sir?
No, see, it is basically you are ignoring the parasitic capacitance. Only after the research has been done, people understood that there is a parasitic capacitance is there. Let us use it for zero voltage switching and increase the efficiency. Otherwise, in hard switching, not only the switching losses, this parasitic capacitance loss also will be added in the efficiency. Theoretically, you may calculate and show the efficiency to be 95 or 96% in hard switching, let us assume. But in practical scenarios, the drop in the capacitance or the loss in the capacitance or the resistance, parasitic resistance, that will include, and the efficiency will further decrease. They are not representing because they are ignoring it.
Even recent converters also, for hot switching, they are not mentioning this capacitors, sir.
No, they will not mention because they are not using that feature.
But in resonant, what is called soft switching, they are mentioning clearly.
They're using it, right? They're using the, for example, I'll show you one thing.
And you said, sir, there is due to presence of this LR, okay, this circuit behave like a resonant circuit, right?
Yes.
Now, if I am using the same converter for hot switching, and let us say my load is the inductive load, then can I find the resonance in that circuit?
See, just putting LR will not ensure your resonance. Okay. For that, there are a lot of criteria. One such criteria is, for example, the choice of LR and CR. This one, this particular slide will explain you. The time, there are two conditions. Let me show it to you. The inductive energy stored should be good enough to change the voltage across the resonant capacitor to the opposite supply rail. For example, it all depends upon how much energy that is stored in the inductor, and that energy, is it sufficient to reverse the polarity of the voltage across the capacitor. Only when you are reversing the voltage across the capacitor, which is parallel, right? If you look,
Right. Got it, sir, got it.
Okay, that is the first condition. There is another condition which says that the voltage transition, that means this reversal should happen within this particular time. It should TD should be greater than pi by 2 into root over LR CR. Based on this, you need to find LR and CR. For example, CR will be coming from the data sheet. Okay, then you can find LR. The time delay will depend upon at what switching frequency you are operating. and for the energy calculation, this is the result. So the primary current should be at least this much to achieve the zero voltage switching. So there are conditions. It is not very straightforward. Just because you put an inductor, it will not achieve. Instead, most of the times, if you badly design a soft switching converter, it will increase the losses to a very high value rather than go ahead with the hard switching only. And the choice of hard switching to, there is another point which I want to mention. Look at here, the voltage originally I naught amount of the current. Originally I naught amount of current should flow, but here because of the soft switching, I naught plus V in by Z in is flowing. That means the switch is taking extra current during the process of resonance converters or during the process of resonance. That means the conduction losses are increasing. While you are trying to reduce the switching losses, the conduction losses are increasing. That means the total losses should be taken into consideration, and there should be a trade-off when you should actually use a soft switching methodologies. If your switching frequency is 50 kilohertz or 20 kilohertz, do not go for soft switching because it will unnecessarily increase your conduction losses. Of course, you are reducing the switching losses, but the conduction losses are increasing. Generally, the soft switching techniques will be used only at very high switching frequencies, typically above 100 kilohertz or 50 kilohertz. That also they will look at the trade-off, whether the total losses are coming down or not.
Nice,
Okay.
sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, so in one of the slide you showed the parasitic elements of a boost converter, sir.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. This is buck converter. Yeah. Tell me.
Why we are not considered the on-state voltage drop a switch?
I have considered, right, R on.
Yes, sir. But why not consider the on-state voltage drop, sir? You are considered on-state drop for diode.
No, there is
VD,
no on-state voltage drop for a MOSFET.
and is there?
When you give the switch, when you give a switching pulse to the MOSFET, it will turn on, right? There won't be any on-state voltage drop. Only diode will have or a thyristor will have. If you look at the characteristics of the switch, MOSFET or IGBT, it doesn't have any on-state voltage drop. It is not significant enough to mention. Did I answer correctly?
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. If you have any other questions, otherwise we'll go to the next part.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, can you hear me?
Your voice is little low.
Sir, I'm asking.
Can anyone hear him?
No, sir. His voice is low.
Hello.
Okay. Okay. You can type it, sir. I will definitely take that query. Okay. Let me go to the other topic. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Now, I want to discuss some of the topologies which we have developed in our lab. This work is actually conducted by my PhD student who has graduated, is Dr. Anurag. I am just presenting it. Of course, he worked under me. Yeah. I don't want to go to all these introduction and all. What I'm trying to say is, what is the necessity of high gain DC-DC converters? Why should we have a high gain DC-DC converter? Which is very evident in my previous discussion. When you have a PV panel, which is generally giving a 30 volts, but if you want to connect it to the grid, definitely you need to boost the voltage. Now, immediately people will tell, sir, your boost converter, generally the gain is 1 by 1 minus D. That means V0 by V in is 1 by 1 minus D. If I put the duty near to unity, you will get a very high gain. Then then you can simply put D is equivalent to 0.9 and achieve 10 times the gain. That is that people may think. But actually in real sense, because of the parasitic elements that are present after 0.6, even though if you increase the duty cycle, the gain will decrease. This is the real time. This waveform was not just drawn. We have done the experiment and we keep on increasing and it will fall. Okay. So the very fundamental thing is, when you are operating a boost converter, it is always better to operate between 0.4 to 0.6. Do not even go above 0.6. If you go above 0.6, you will not get that benefit. Your gain will not increase further. It may slightly increase, but with an but what is a disadvantage? If duty cycle is increasing means the amount of time the switch is on is increasing. That means the amount of conduction loss is increasing. The efficiency of your machine will, your converter will decrease. So if you want to integrate the low voltage to an high voltage grid, then you need a high gain DC-DC converters. In literature, there are magnetic based high gain and magnetic less high gain, isolated and non-isolated, which we have discussed in the previous thing. What is meant by magnetic means if there is an inductor, coupled inductor, transformer, all these things, then we call it as a magnetic based high gain DC converters. All these are magnetic based. You can see isolated means the first one, A figure is an isolated because transformer is there. Whereas non-isolated means you have a common ground, input and output has a common ground. And similarly, floating point means your input and output ground are not the same. They are different, but there is no isolation also. This is floating. Okay. These all things I have explained. Flyback and all these things I have explained. But what I want to tell you is one important thing. When you are using a transformer, there will be a leakage impedance or leakage energy. In order to counter and use this leakage energy, people have proposed a passive clamp circuit and active clamp circuit. What will happen is, whatever leakage energy is there, this passive clamp circuit will, when the switch is off, what will happen is this diode will be on and the energy, the leakage energy will be fed back to the input. Once it is fed back to the input, what is happening? The amount of input you are giving to the system is reduced. That means the efficiency increased, because your efficiency is output power by input power. If the amount of input power is reduced, or you are feeding some power to the source through the leakage, whatever leakage is occurring, then the efficiency can be improved. This can be a passive diode or an active switch. If it is an active switch, then it is called active clamping. Obviously, when you go for an active switch, you need to have an extra driver and the cost will increase. Okay. Please remember, all these things are ready-madely available in the literature to boost the voltage. If the input voltage is 10 volts, you will get an output voltage. This is much higher, but you are using an coupled inductor here. If you closely observe, forget about this NS and CC. It is a boost converter only. It is a simple boost converter, but they have slightly modified the circuit to achieve a higher output. Because of this coupling inductor, the boosting capability has increased. And this second figure is nothing but having a extra active clamp circuit. Like this, there are several topologies available, but our major concentration is not to use any magnetic based circuits, and our concentration is for a non-isolated topologies. There are more applications for non-isolated. We are not using a transformer, we are not using an inductor and everything. We will simply use capacitors to achieve a high gain. I will explain in detail this particular slide. Please try to concentrate this slide. If you can understand this slide, remaining things is very easy. If in the figure A, if phi1 is on, what will be the voltage across the capacitor? V in. And let us assume phi1 is off, phi2 is on. Then what will be the voltage across capacitor C2? It will be V in again, because whatever energy that is stored in capacitor C1 will be transferred to capacitor C2. This is called charge pump up circuit. We are basically pumping the charge from one place to another place. Like we tell in lift irrigation projects. You lift the water from one area to another area. Similarly, whatever charge that is present in capacitor C1 is been dumped to capacitor C2. But this is not increasing the voltage. It is the same voltage. People may ask, sir, you directly connect across, why are you connecting C1? Remove C1, put only one switch, or directly give it to this one. Now look at here. Slightly if you change, if the number of switches are increasing in B figure, if phi1 and phi1, this phi1 and this phi1 are on, then V in will come in parallel with C1 and V in will be across C1. Am I right? Yes or no? Then the capacitor C1 will be charged.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now turn off 5-1 and 5. Turn off 5-1s. Turn on 5-2s. Then V in and capacitor C1 are in series, which is charging C0. That means what will be the voltage across C0? It will be 2 times V in. This is called voltage doubler circuit. We are doubling the voltage. And if you connect such things in cascade series parallel connection, we will get more amount of output DC voltage. There are different types. Series parallel circuits are there. Ladder circuit is there. Fibonacci switched capacitor circuit. But for all these things, the circuit B is the fundamental block. How you connect it will increase the number of stages. And even you would have, those who have studied high voltage engineering, you would have heard Cockcroft-Walton multiplier circuit, Dixon multiplier circuits, which are generally used for high voltage, low current applications. But once we want to test whether these can be used for a DC-DC converter at a high power applications or high current, high voltage applications, those things also we are monitoring. So, and another thing is, you have a, I suddenly jump to these multi-level inverters. The reason is we are trying to bring both the things together. That's why generally multi-level inverters, the problem is you need more amount of DC voltages. Okay, I'll not go into this one. Yeah, let me briefly explain the multi-level. If one DC voltage is there, it will be like this. If I put a switch, the DC can be get plus VDC by 2 and minus VDC by 2. If you put more number of switches, you can get a stepped output like this. Okay. There are several topologies, multi-level topologies. You can cascade them, Fibonacci series with H-bridge to get a higher output. All these things are there. But we'll concentrate on DC-DC converters. Yeah. Now we have proposed this particular switched capacitor based high gain DC-DC converter with multiple voltage conversion ratios. Look at this figure A, which is a 2 times basic switched capacitor module, and the next one is 3 times basic switched capacitor module. What will happen in this 2 times is, let us take switch S0 and S2 are on. Then this particular red color line, if you look at, based on this, the current will flow and it will charge the capacitor C1. And at that time, what will happen? The voltage across the capacitor C1 will be V1. Now, in the second instance, turn off S0 and S2, turn on S1 and S2 for the next 50% duty cycle. Whatever energy that is stored in capacitor C1 will be discharged to capacitor C2. Then the voltage across C2 will become C1, whatever voltage. That means the output voltage between point P and point N will become 2 times V in. This is called 2 times module because the voltage is getting doubled. And what is the duty cycle? Duty cycle is very simple, 50% duty cycle. You on S0 and S2 for 50%, S1 and S3 for another 50%. Now, similarly, you can look at here, alternate switches if you on. If you on, sorry, I did not mention the numbers, but if you, from the bottom, switch 1 and switch 3, from the bottom, if you on, capacitor C1 will be charging. Then you on this particular second switch and fourth switch, then whatever energy that is stored in C1 will go to C2. Then C2 will pump up to C3, C3 will pump to C4. And all these capacitors will be charged to V in voltage. And now if you look at the output P and N, what will be the output voltage? It will be 3 times V in. With simple 50% duty cycle, I was able to achieve this particular output. Now, what is our contribution is, the basic modules are readily available. We did not design that one. But taking those modules, we have connected in a cascaded fashion. What will happen with this cascaded fashion is, between P2 and M11, the voltage is 2 times V in. If I give the 2 times V in as an input to 2 times module, what will be the output? You will get 4 times the output. How many of you understood this? If you have a doubt, please ask me.
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Yeah. So what we are trying to do is look at the output at P2 and the N1. Here, this 2 times module will give me 4 times the input, and another Vin will be in series. So total 5 times I'll get. Like this, I can get different options. If I simply change this blue color line to N1, I'll get another output. So we have tested with several possible combinations. Let me show it here. If I connect it this if I connect a 3 times module cascaded with 3 times module, and if I connect in this fashion, that means Vin is been given as an input to the next 3 times module. Then the final output between P2 and N1. The second module is giving 3 Vin. From the first module, the voltage across capacitor C2 and the voltage across the input Vin. Total, you will get 5 Vin. If I simply change the red color line to this one, to the second module, I am giving 2 Vin. That means the output of the second module will be 6 Vin plus 1 Vin, that is 7 Vin. Like this, we can get different output voltages. Okay. So then what we have thought is, instead of doing this one, we have put 5 number of switches at 5 strategical positions. And these 5 switches need not be a semiconductor switches. It can be a mechanical switch also. And the control of this one is done by a logic circuit. What will happen is, if I want 4 times input, if Vin is 100 volts, if I want 400 volts, I'll just press G4, and internally the circuit is aligned such that A, B, C, D, E, what switches should be on will be decided automatically. That means if A is on 1, C is 1, that means P1 is connected to M1 and M1 dash is connected to N2. And in that scenario, you will get an output voltage of 4 times, or sorry, 5 times. And for example, if the user unknowingly given 3-4 inputs at a time falsely, then internally the logic was designed in such a way that it will take the highest input. For example, G4, G5, G6 are given, then all the other inputs are 0. Then what it will do is, it will make sure that G6 is only active. Remaining 2 will not be taken into consideration. The logic is written in that fashion. And we have compared our topology with various topologies. Obviously, we will be very careful while comparing. Whichever is giving better result, we will eliminate that. That's what researchers are doing it. But we did not want to give a false opinion to the whoever is reading our paper. You can see here, when you see the number of switches, definitely our topology is doing better. But when you look at the stress on the switches, our topology is not very good. Ladder type is good. But when you look at the number of capacitor requirement, in that position also Fibonacci series is good. And if you look at the maximum stress on the capacitors, again ladder type is good. More or less, ladder type is little overpowering our topology, but the gain what we are getting is little higher. Okay, but we did not stop at this position. What we did is, just give me a time, 1 minute. Hello. Yeah. Yeah, so sorry. Yeah, so we did not stop merely calculating the number of switches, stresses on the switch, and number of capacitors, which anyone can do it. But the most important thing is, we need to calculate the output impedance of the converter. Generally, should the output impedance should be low or high for any converter? What is your opinion?
High,
Why it should be high?
so that it can have more voltage. So more voltage we can establish across the output.
Is it not, if the output impedance is more, then the more losses will occur? Or No, you are talking about the parallel resistance, right? I'm not
Yes,
talking
yes.
about the parallel. In series. Output impedance means in series.
Yes. In series, it should be low, sir.
It should be low.
Yes.
Okay. That will ensure that more amount of power is being transferred. Simple look at the Thevenin equivalent circuit. Simply look at the Thevenin equivalent circuit. You have a voltage in series with a resistor. When you will get the maximum power transfer, when the output impedance is equivalent to input impedance or matching. If you talk about resistor, R Thevenin is equivalent to the load resistance. But please remember, at that instance, what is the efficiency?
50%. 50%.
Only 50%.
Yes.
Is it good?
No.
Okay, you're transferring the maximum power to the load, but at what efficiency? 50%,
50%.
which is not good. So, if the source impedance is less, then you will have a more efficiency. If the source impedance is less, you will have more efficiency. So, what we did is, we tried to calculate the output impedance of our proposed converter. And for this method, for this, we have followed some literature review. They have proposed to calculate how much charge is been flowing in the circuit at different instances, and in the capacitors or in the switches, how much charge. So we have multiplied, we have found these charge matrices. Okay, I'm just giving an overview because there is a lot of study went into this one. If somebody wants, you write an email to me, I'll send those papers. It is not very easy to explain it in 1 hour or so. It requires some time to study. And if you have any doubts, you can contact me. But what we did is, we calculated the output impedance of the converter by using a charge multiplier circuit. The charge multiplier circuit means, in each capacitor, how much charge is expected to flow in each operating area. Based on that, we have found this charge multiplier circuit. And from that charge multiplier circuit, we have found the output resistance or output impedance in slow switching limit and as well as fast switching limit, where C total is the total capacitance value we have used, FSW is the switching frequency we are going, and RFSL is fast switching limit. G total is the total charge. Okay, and then we have compared this one with the most existing topologies, and you can see the impedance is much lesser, which is 576, whereas in the prominent topologies it is around 784. Even in the fast switching limit impedance also, we have calculated, it is coming down. This is one good way of comparing, and I'm pretty sure if you design any new DC-DC converter, I request you to calculate this one and people will appreciate. Initially, we also did not do, and the paper got simply rejected, saying that there are so many topologies coming, anyone can show these topologies. Then what in order to improve this one, we have gone for this output impedance comparison. Okay, then we have done the simulation in the MATLAB, and you can see for an input of 30 volts, we have got 120 volts G4. If it is G5, 150 up to G9, and this is a bidirectional feature is also there, and the voltage stress on the switches has been shown here. The important thing what I want to show you in this converter is, once people may think, sir, you are using so many capacitors, is there no voltage drop across the capacitor? Yes, there is a voltage drop across the capacitor, because capacitor will not come as a pure capacitance. There will be a resistance. Okay, to counter that, we have used a closed loop control also. Apart from that, in 9 times, the expected output is 270. But when you keep the load, when the current is flowing, if in an open circuit, there is no, since no current is flowing, what will happen? The power loss in the parasitic resistance will be 0. But when you keep the load, then there will be a loss across the resistor. Along with the capacitor, there will be a resistance. When the current is flowing, there will be a drop. Even then, the voltage regulation in full load, we got only 265 volts. We are expecting 250, 270, but we got 265. 5 volts voltage drop is there. This is because of the parasitic resistances, or the capacitors will never come as a pure capacitance. Have you any time taken a simple capacitor and seen the voltage and current across a capacitor? Everyone will say that the current will lead by voltage by 90 degrees. You take any practical capacitor, I am pretty sure you will get an angle of 70 to 80 or 60 to 80 degrees. You will not get 90. You'll not even get more than 80. That much amount of resistance will be there. You can do this simple experiment to your students also. I hope what I'm saying you understood. You take any electrolytic capacitor, power, and just connect a voltage to it, sinusoidal voltage to it, measure the voltage and current, and show them what is this parasitic effect. In theory, we are saying they will be 90 degrees apart. The current will be leading the voltage by 90 degrees. But no, in practical, this is a scenario. You will get between 60 to 80. And we have done at least 300 capacitors. I'm not simply saying, I have taken 300 different types of capacitors, continuously done this experiment, and I'm telling. Okay. These are the experimental results. You can see, obviously, when the gain is high, 9 times, the current will in the input side will be very low, very high, because the power should be balanced on the primary side and the secondary side. Okay. The same thing in case of full load also, full load to no load. In the experimental study, the output voltage is more or less maintained constant. This is the efficiency curve. We are getting a very good efficiency. One difficulty we have faced with this particular topology is it will give an integer gain. It will give either 4 times, 5 times, or 9 times, like that. But this is not suitable for MPPT algorithm, because in MPPT algorithm you should have a fractional gain, non-integer gain. So in order to achieve that one, we have proposed another topology. This topology is just a cascading of basic boost converter with a resonance converter and then a n-stage diode capacitor multiplier circuit. In the boost converter, you will get V0 by V0 by 1 by 1 minus D. What this diode voltage capacitor will do is it will boost. Each stage will give you increase the voltage. That means your V0 by Vin is equivalent to N by 1 minus D. Normally it is.
Sir, why you have connected diode, sir? Diode DS.
Which diode? Yeah, this is again a very good question. Now, in the conventional boost converter, this is not. It is an unit. In order to make it unidirectional, the reason is normally the switch will come with an anti-parallel diode. That means the current can flow in both the direction. Okay. To avoid that one, we faced some issue. If sometimes what happens is, if there is excess of energy that is stored in the capacitor, it is trying to reverse and give it back to the inductor. Okay. So we have to keep this DS to avoid bidirectional power flow in the switch. What will happen is normally the current flow from drain to source, but because of the anti-parallel diode, there is a chance that the current can flow in the reverse direction. But to avoid that one, this extra switch has been placed. Definitely it will increase the cost and losses also will increase. Yes.
If I go for thyristor, then no need of this DS.
No, thyristor you cannot use it, because the simple reason is thyristor is a semi-controlled device. You can on, but you cannot off. You should have a control both in on and off.
Right.
Yeah.
Sir, if you remove the anti-parallel diode across the switch, then there is no need of DS, right, sir?
No, you cannot remove, because the switch will inherently come with an anti-parallel diode.
Okay, body diode, right.
Body diode will come, that we cannot avoid. So to counter that one, we have to put another diode there. Okay. And if you look at the ideal scenario, normal boost converter will give V0 by Vn as 1 by 1 minus D. But because of this n-stage diode capacitor voltage multiplier circuit, we are getting n times. But again, if you include the resonance circuit, because of the presence of LR and CR, the voltage gain will not be n by 1 minus D. There will be some subtraction factor. It depends upon what is the value of the inductor and what is the ripple current. We have derived this particular equation. Okay. And you can see as the duty cycle increases, as the number of stages increases, the gain achieved will be increasing. But as I mentioned in the starting, I will ensure that my gain is only between 0.4 to 0.6. I have taken the duty cycle as 0.5 and the number of stages as 5. Then I got a gain up to 10 times. Theoretically, I got 10 times, but because of the presence of resonance inductor, it will be slightly reduced. So look at here. This is an experimental prototype which we have done. Okay. And this is what we want to show you here is, you look at the submodule. If you want to increase one more stage, you can just put this extra submodule and you can get the 6 times. Now we have put 5 times. If you want one more, you can also get 6 times. The design of input inductor is a crucial thing in this topology. The very reason is, here, if you take 30 volts as an input, you are expecting 10 times. That means 300 volts. If the power is, let us take 500 watt, output current will be around 1.5 amperes. But the input current, 500 divided by 30, it will be around 15 amperes. So the input inductor should carry a very high amount of current, and so the design of this one is little tricky, okay, or it takes, and we have gone up to a 75 kilohertz. If you look at in this hardware prototype itself, we have the driver circuit also, the controller, every action has been taken. It's an open loop thing. After that, we have done the closed loop also. I will show you some results which will help you to understand the zero voltage switching in a better way. The orange color line over here is your switching pulse. And when I am turning on the switch, you look at the voltage across the switch, VSW, it has become 0. So you are achieving the zero voltage switching. This is the experimental study we have done. And you can see the input voltage was given 480. We are expecting 480 volts as an out, 48 volts is the input. We are expecting 480 volts, but we are not getting it because of the presence of resonance inductor and all. 450 only we are getting, but the efficiency has increased.
Sir, can you explain once again this ZVS?
Yeah. See, this VGS is the gating pulse we are giving to the switch, and VSW is the voltage across this switch. The voltage across this particular switch. Okay. And when we are when the switch is given to turn on, what is the voltage across the switch? It is 0.
It should be 0.
And then the current is allowed to flow. Then what is the power? 0 into current. That means
0.
power loss is 0.
0.
Okay. The remaining two waveforms are the voltage across the capacitor, this capacitor. Okay. And the voltage across the diode. See, this reverse current is there, right? You can see this reverse current, what is flowing. This we need to avoid. That's why we have put that diode. Okay. Now, you look at the current that is flowing in the inductor. Input inductor is around 11 amperes. And we could achieve all the voltages across the capacitors are fixed to 90 volts. Okay. This is another thing. When there is a sudden change in the load, you can see the output voltage is not changed much. The input current is changed, output current is varied, or the load is varied from 50% to 100%. Even then, the output voltage is fixed. And again, earlier I have told, when the load is, let us take 200 watts. We have designed this for 500 watts, but when you put a load of 200 watts, still ZVS is occurring. But if you put a load of 80 watts, then if you closely observe, the voltage is not becoming 0 by the time the switch is turned on. We are losing the ZVS. That means at light loading conditions, you may not achieve the ZVS. But our converter is, the boundary condition is from 80 watts to 500 watts. It will work perfectly. 80 watts is a very light load. Consider you have designed a system for 500 watts. 80 watts means it is only 1/5 of the load. Generally, with such low loading condition also, our converter is working better. Okay. These are the losses and efficiency, out of which the diode losses are the more. But if you're using a fast Schottky diode, the cost of the converter will increase, but the losses can be further reduced. The switching losses are very less, only 10%. Remaining capacitor losses, inductor losses. And when you talk about the reliability of this one, the most I will say that the reliability is less. The reason is we are using more amount of capacitors. In any converter, the most unreliable component is capacitor. Imagine how many capacitors they will make. Hundreds of capacitors they will make in a lot. We cannot ensure that every capacitor will work correctly. Are you getting my point? For example, you buy some 10 capacitors. Will you check all the capacitors before buying whether it is working or not? No, you will not check. You will assume that they will work. Let us take a screws are there, normal nuts and bolts. Will you check whether all the nuts and bolts are working perfectly? You will assume that if you buy 100, they will work. Okay, but if you buy some refrigerator or a fan or a very big element, one single, you will definitely check and come. Even a bulb you will check and come. But the small elements you will not check. And these are manufactured in a bulk time. Then the reliability of these capacitors or the small resistors what you are going to use are very less. That's why it is better to use surface mounted resistors and surface mounted capacitors, which are more reliable than the normal resistors which you use. Okay. So I'll stop at this point. Of course, I have some more. These are different topologies on multi-level inverter, but I can show one particular result. See, using this one fractional gain, I told, right? I can achieve by changing the duty cycle. I can get a multi-level output with different AC voltages. We have done some more experimentation on that. This one also we can achieve. When the load is changing also we can achieve. Okay, but I'll restrict here because we have another 7 minutes. Yeah, if you have any doubts you can ask me.
Sir, there are one or two doubts in the chat box, sir.
Let me go. I'm stopped my presentation. If required, I will share it again. Okay, there are.
Earlier doubts have clarified. Only Muthu Kumaraswamy doubt. Can ZVS be used during that?
Akshay Sharma, what is the efficiency of converter in solar photovoltaic system? See, now we are able to achieve up to 98%, 99% if you use the silicon carbide devices. Silicon carbide devices are normally the losses are very less. Okay, then that is over. Yeah. Can ZVS be used during turn on and ZCS be used during turn off? No. ZVS is used during turn on only. It is not during turn off. Zero voltage switching means during turn on, before the turn on, the switch will be having the voltage across the switch will be high. Make it zero and then turn on. Then only you will use ZVS. Similarly, zero current switching means initially the current will, before you turn off, the switch is on. That means current is flowing inside that switch. Then you ensure the current in the switch is zero. Then you turn off the switch. So your question is, you can use ZVS only during turn on and you can achieve ZCS only during turn off. Are we using parasitics to ensure the voltage and the current? Yes, we are using the parasitic capacitance, and if there is a transformer, the leakage impedance of the transformer is also used as a parasitic inductance to achieve ZVS. Yeah, Naveen has asked how to measure stress on the switch. The stress on the switch means when the switch is turned off, what is the voltage that is appeared across the switch. In simulation, when you are doing, just put a voltmeter across it and see when the switch is off, how much maximum voltage it is getting in the when the switch is off or when it is in the reverse biased condition. In experimental, if you want to measure the experimental across the switch, again you need to put a voltage sensor.
Sir, sorry to forget one more question regarding this soft switching.
Yeah.
You mentioned one more point, sir. The stress across the switches is less in case of soft switching.
No, I did not mention that. I said during soft switching, during conduction, the amount of voltage going into the switch is more. Hello?
Sir, please.
Yeah, your point is also correct. Yes, during soft switching, sometimes the amount of voltage during reverse bias will be little higher. Yes, you are right. Yeah.
Sir, you are using more number of capacitors to increase the gain, sir. So during any fault, what about the fault tolerant capability of that circuit? So suppose under running condition, if any capacitor may damage, then
That's why I have explicitly mentioned the reliability of this one is still a question. See, if you ask me that question, in any other converters there are switches. During operation, if a switch blows, the converter will not operate. The reliable. That's why we need to calculate the reliability. See, most of the switches are very reliable. Okay, at least for 5 years it will work. Why all the electronic people, they are confidently, if you take a TV, they will say 3 years warranty. They know that these things will work for 3 years. After that, the capacitor or something will fail. Okay. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Just
Sir,
a second. I'll take one.
Yeah, participants try to ask the questions as early as possible. Sir, have another toss at 11 a.m. Please.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, extremely sorry. Actually, what happens is like one of my friend was not well. We have to go, but I still have 5 more minutes. Please, any other doubts, you please ask.
Yes, sir. Please, good morning, sir. How to measure the switching losses theoretically, sir? How to measure switching losses?
Yeah, the switching losses to this, I have to show one particular, I'm trying to show. Please go to any data sheet
Yes, sir.
of MOSFET, any MOSFET, yeah. In the data sheet, they will mention E on and E off. For example, you look at this particular data sheet, the capacitance, yeah, here see single, not EA, not EAS. Let me show you.
In terms of frequency, is there any relation between the switching losses and frequencies?
Yes, definitely. If
Yes,
the
sir.
frequency increases, the switching losses will increase because the
How
number of
can, yes, sir. How can we measure that, sir, actually?
No, theoretically what we'll do is, for example, you are running at 50 hertz, 50 kilohertz. Okay.
Yeah.
You for example, in the data sheet, they will give E on and E off. E on means energy lost during oning the switch. If it
Yes.
is 1 millijoule, multiply with the number of times the switching.
Yes. Okay.
Similarly, E off also. Okay. There is a lot of literature available. I can send it to you. But here in this particular, see, this RDS on is mentioned. From this RDS on, you can measure the conduction losses. What I mean conduction losses is, if the amount of current the switch is taking is like load is 10 amperes, or the average current that is flowing is 10 amperes, then you can multiply with this resistance to get the conduction loss. Okay, and these are the various capacitances: input capacitance, output capacitance, the voltage. These are the parasitic capacitance, 870 picofarad, and all these things will be mentioned. Similarly, the energy loss also should be mentioned, or sometimes they will give it in the graphs.